scrub jay right here nearby, if you travel, an hour away, you're probably not going to find one. So just going to Miami, for example, you're going to see a whole different set of birds than you see here in Central Florida. So you can use this information that we're going to talk about, whether it's nearby or far, far away. So the two kind of main ways to travel bird, the first would be to hire a guide. And the guide is going to take you to the best spots and identify the birds that you see for you. And sometimes they'll even keep an eBird list for you. So that's certainly requires a lot less planning and effort. And you won't be disappointed by missing out on target birds that you weren't even aware of. So that's kind of nice too. But it can be expensive. The other way that you can do travel birding is pretty much on your own. So researching the hot spots ahead of time, getting familiar with the likely birds so that you can identify them on your own. This is, well, I tend to do most of my travel birding on my own and try to hire a guide, like a local guide, for maybe a day or half a day when I get a chance. So first I'm going to share some of the ways that I prepare for birding in new places, and later I'll give you some tips on hiring a guide. I often borrow a book, or I either buy one or borrow one, just a little guide for an area in preparation. And this is something small. I love these smaller guides because it just has a lot of the birds plus some information about where you might be able to find it and the habitat that it is found in. A lot of times I don't even take this with me. I just look at it ahead of time because I travel very light. So sometimes I just can't take the book with me. But that's what Merlin is for. Merlin is great because it's everything you need in your pocket. And like I said, Merlin is really the main resource that I use, and it's free. It's just a free app on your phone called Merlin Bird ID. And let me open that for you so you can see. All right, are you able to see the scrub jay on my screen?
So we can see.
Okay, great. So this is Merlin. And before you leave for your trip, you want to make sure that you download the bird packs on Merlin and the eBird app for the places that you're going to. And the places are listed by country sometimes, and then sometimes they're listed by state or province. And I've had trouble like figuring out which bird pack to get because I put in the country and nothing comes up. But if you put in the country code, like for Brazil, it's BR, then it's going to show the state plus BR. And so you just want to select whichever state that you're going to be visiting. So keep that in mind. And the bird packs are here in the settings. If you look at the very bottom right, it says settings. You tap that, and then you can tap bird packs. And then you can, as long as all is highlighted to the right, you can pull up any bird pack that you need. And you can use the search bar at the top to type in whatever you need. And that is the same for eBird. You're going to do the same thing for eBird. Also, we have tutorials for using Merlin for identification and eBird for keeping lists of the birds that you find on our website and our YouTube channel. Tonight, we're just going to discuss a few features that I use for travel prep. So Merlin will not only help you identify birds in the field, but it can easily help you get familiar with the birds that you are most likely to see. Merlin works together with your eBird account, but I've noticed it doesn't always update automatically. So if you notice that, then if you just tap at the bottom where it says Life List, just tap that, and then it's going to update. And you should see that the number of species matches your eBird, and then you know it's updated. So first we're going to explore the region that we'll be birding. So this is going to give you a chance to get familiar with the birds that you might see, and it will also load the birds for offline use later. So I tap the Explore at the very bottom, And then at the top right, you see the lines, the 3 lines, that's your menu. So tap the menu. And then we want it filtered by likely birds and for the area that you're going to be birding. Right here I have Accra selected. This is where I was birding last in Ghana. And sorted by most likely. And the great thing about Merlin is that it takes into consideration migration. So it's only going to show you the birds that are currently in the specified area. So if you're planning a trip in the future, you want to change that date. So so right now you're seeing that Accra would have about 226. Well, let me make sure this is for this one. Yeah, 226 birds you see at the bottom in the green. 226 birds are possible in Accra today. But if we change the date, let's say my trip is actually going to be in June. We'll say June 18th. There's now almost 600 birds that are available. So if you have any flexibility in your trip, you might decide, hey, let's wait and go in June when there's twice as many birds possible. So this is another way of looking at an area. If you're like, hey, I definitely want to go to Italy, and but you're not sure when you want to go. Of course, weather is a factor, but you can also look at when the birds are, most of the birds are going to be in the area. And so once we hit show the birds, then it's going to give us the list of birds that are most likely in the area. Oh my, it's doing something. I'm going to go back to today's date. And I noticed it jumped to family. So I want to keep it sorted by most likely, because we want to learn the birds that you're most likely going to encounter. So when we do this, it's going to pull it up. The pied crow by far is the most common bird that you're going to see. And so as you, every time I touch it, it's jumping. So as you scroll through here, you're going to see all of the most common birds. And you'll notice, well, one of the things I like to do is actually tap on the first bird. And here you can see different pictures of the bird if you swipe across the top. Oh man. It just kicked me out. Okay. And then it has the information from like your guide about the bird, the calls, and the map here. But while you're in this, you can actually just swipe to the right and it's going to show you the next bird. And then swipe to the right again and it's going to show you the next bird. So I enjoy just scrolling through this before I'm on the trip, just so I can get familiar with the birds. And then also when you go back to the main list, you're going to pay attention to the icons. The icon that you see here that's blue with a check mark, that just means it's already on my lifer list. So I've already seen the birds that have the blue check mark. Otherwise, there is no symbol. So if I had not seen a pied crow, there would just be 0 symbols on that. And the no symbol on it, like the green wood hoopoe, I have not seen that bird. There is no icon next to it. All of these birds here, because they don't have an icon, those are common birds, expected birds to be seen in this area. And then if you scroll down farther, we're going to get to ones that have a different icon. Here we are. This orange half circle means uncommon birds. So they are uncommonly reported in that area at this time. And then if you go farther, you get to the red dots. And those would be considered rare for the area at this time of year. So Really, if you want to just concentrate on the ones that are most likely, then you would just concentrate on the birds that don't have any of these icons, like the orange or the red. And that'll give you a good chance of knowing the birds when you see them. And that's one of the most thrilling things for me, is when I have looked at these birds ahead of time and then I get into the field and all of a sudden I see, like at the airport, I was like, oh my goodness, there's a pied crow right there. Like, and I know what it is without even having to like pull out my phone. I think that's a really exciting thing. Okay, so now I want to talk about eBird. And generally, we use the eBird app to submit our lists of the birds that we see, but the website is also a valuable resource for learning about hotspots and birds and more. I often don't have internet when birding in some of these locations. So I've learned to start a checklist for the hotspot I'm going to ahead of time while I still have internet at home. And then I just delete that afterwards. But this loads the list of expected birds into my app so that I can make a checklist in the field without internet later on. So that's one little trick that I learned. Also, I like to use eBird. Okay, so now we're on to the eBird website. On the eBird website, they have something really cool called the photo and sound quiz. So if you go to eBird's website and you tap explore at the top there, and then you scroll all the way down to the bottom, under the learn birding skills, it says on the far right, photo and sound quiz. You tap that and then start quiz. And I've chosen Ghana. We'll use today's date. And then I'm going to do a photo quiz. I'm going to start quiz. And the photos that it's going to give you are photos that someone has taken and uploaded to their eBird checklist. So the quality of the photos can totally range from a cell phone shot to a very professional photo like we're looking at right now. So it's definitely a challenge, and it's a fun challenge to kind of get familiar with the birds. What it's doing is it's giving you the photo, it's giving you multiple choice options, and you try to identify the bird, and then it's going to ask you to rate the photo. So this one I did not see, but it looks to me like a paradise flycatcher. And since it has a black head, I'm going to go with that, and we'll see what happens. Nope, it was wrong. So it was an African paradise flycatcher. And so it shows me, the red means that was incorrect. And then the green would be if you are correct. And then you can rate the image below. And this is an excellent photo. It's in focus. The bird takes up a great portion of it. So I'm going to give it a 5-star. If you hit just below that in the stars, it says learn about ratings. I encourage you, before you ever rate anyone's photo, click on that and learn about the instructions for how to rate the photos, because it does give you some great information there. And so I'm going to rate it a 5, and it's going to give you the next photo. So it's going to go through 20 photos for this particular quiz and then give you a score at the end. So this is just a fun way to either get to know the birds, even if you don't know what they are, just kind of guessing and then getting things wrong. That helps us learn as well. And I also like to use this occasionally for places that I have been a long time ago, just to kind of refresh my mind on being able to identify those birds from previous trips. And then if you go back, you can choose the sound quiz. This is a lot more challenging. I have not done too many of the sound quizzes, but so it's giving us a sound recording, and it wants us to identify the bird based on this. And I really have no idea what this would be. So I know the only bird I saw there was the woodland kingfisher. My Sandhill frames are chiming in. So again, it was incorrect. And then there's a rating system. There's a rating system at the bottom. I am not going to rate this because I don't remember what the qualifications were for this. So I'm just going to back out for now. Okay. Something else. Oh boy. The cranes are so loud. Can you guys hear me over the cranes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Something else I do is when I go to eBird, you can look at a location. Let's go back to just explore. So you can go to a region. So you can type in Ghana. And gonna want to look for the regions. Okay. So you can just scroll down to like the sub-region that you're thinking about visiting, like so here, Accra. I'll tap on that. And you can look for the locations, looking for hotspots. On the right side, it says hotspots. I'm sorry, left side. And then you can see there's very few birders here in this area, but if you back out to all years rather than just like currently being seen, you can see these right here are people. So we want to scroll to, oh no, these are locations. So you're looking at the locations that have the most birds. And so that's a great way to pick out different hotspots that you want to go to when you're traveling. Okay, so this also leads me to finding a guide. So if you decide that you don't want to do this on your own, you want to have someone who can point you to the birds and take you to some of the great spots. You want to try to find a guide who is local and knows where to take you. And birding guides can be expensive, but you'll definitely see more birds with a local guide who birds the area regularly than you will on your own. To find a guide, you can try looking on eBird at the top birders for a hotspot. Sometimes they'll have contact info on their profile. One cool story about this is Tammy had wanted to go to Nairobi National Park. And so she just looked at the hotspot for the Nairobi National Park and looked at the top birders for that location. And one of the guys had his profile information with his email included. And she messaged him, and he's a guide, and he took her to the park, and they found 182 birds in one day at the park. So that's definitely a way to find people who know the park really well and know the birds in that area. You can also ask around the club. A lot of us are birding in a lot of different places, and so we have guides in different areas that we can refer you to. There are also Facebook groups for reviews and recommendations. Also, sometimes when I travel to an area, I will contact their local Audubon type club and ask them if they have suggestions for a guide that I can use for the day. Especially as a woman solo traveler, I will ask specifically sometimes for a female guide, or I will make sure that they recommend someone if it's, if I'm going to be in a car alone with a man, I just want to make sure that some of the other women vouch for this person before I do that. So that's kind of a helpful thing. If an area seems inaccessible, which could be for reasons of transportation or safety, or sometimes it's private access, and it's out of your price range, you can consider a more general tour, which will still give you access to an area, and your guide might still have some kind of bird knowledge, or at least be willing to point out birds for you. When we were in Peru, I wanted to bird Manu Road, which has the highest species count in the world. This is for the road. This is a winding 2-lane road on mountain edges ranging from an elevation of 12,000 feet to 1,600 feet that takes 7 hours to drive from Cusco through cloud forest to the Amazon rainforest. Few people would be brave enough to drive this on their own. The birding tours were really pricey, and I really wanted my family to come with me. So I ended up booking a jungle tour with Eco Peru Tours. And after meeting the owner and learning about our specific interest, he ended up matching us with his birding guide. We would have seen more birds had I done his actual birding tour. However, I was extremely happy with the number of birds we saw, and my family was able to experience a night trek through the jungle, seeing hundreds of parrots, parakeets, and macaws feeding at a salt lick at sunrise along the river. And we watched 20-some varieties of hummingbirds come to feeders at various places, some of which were closed to the public. So the guide was able to get us into these places. So that was definitely worth hiring a guide, and not specifically birding related, but it worked out absolutely perfect for us. Another thing that I recommend that you do before you leave for your trip is to create a trip report. And a trip report basically just combines the eBird lists that you create into one report that's really easy to see and understand. So I'm going to show you that. So you, again, go to the eBird website, click on My eBird, and you're going to go on the left-hand side where it says Manage My, and then you drop down to Trip Reports. So you tap on that. And since we were just talking about the Manu trip, we'll pull that one up. So here at the top right, it shows you a map of all of the hotspots or all of the checklists that you put in. So you can see your route, you can zoom in on it, you can move it around, and then below, so right here, right below the map, it says data for the group. So my guide and I are in this. I'm just going to change it to my name so that you can see the stats for me in particular. So I saw 179 species on this trip. 55 were lifers. If you look just below it, it shows 55 lifers, 40 new birds that I photographed, and 2 new audio recordings that I added to eBird. There were 27 checklists and 45 species with photos. If you tap on the 45 species with photos, it'll actually show you the photos that you took, which is a fun way to kind of look back at your trip and see what you saw. On the left-hand side, it allows you to add comments. And I like to do this kind of to keep the memories of what I did and where we went and anything that I want to remember. I like to add like the non-bird sightings at the bottom, all the monkeys and caterpillars and a bamboo rat that my daughter thought was the best thing in the world. So that is the trip report. So to create a new one, you again just go to My eBird and then trip reports, and then on the right side you'll see create trip report. So you tap that, trip report. So you type in the name of it, and then you can type in the date. The great thing about the trip reports is it just collects the data. So you can make this trip report before you even go on the trip, or you can make it after you go on the trip. It doesn't matter. The date it's just whenever. So if you make this in the future for, say, we make this trip report for a trip in July, when July comes, that data will just populate, which is really cool. We use this for our CBCs too, and we create the trip report ahead of time. And so on the day of the CBC, I can actually watch the whole CBC data get compiled automatically. And I can share that with anybody and they can watch it too. So I'm going to create this Ghana trip report. I forget what the dates were. March. March 14 to 23. Okay, so March 14 to 23. And then I'll make it public and then hit create trip report. All checklists are included for those dates. Actually, I'll take that one off. It lets you take any off that you want to. And then hit save and view. So this is my trip report. I ended up seeing 39 species and 17 lifers. So it's a quick way to figure out too, like how many birds were new for me on this trip. And instead of going through, you can see I had 18 checklists. Instead of going through each of the checklists and trying to figure out which birds were new and how many birds did I see total, this just does it for you in a couple buttons. So it's really amazing. And as I said, you can share this trip report with anybody. So on the left-hand side, you'll see underneath my name, you'll see a share button. If you tap the share button, it's going to give you a link. You can share it through Facebook or email. But I just copy that link and I text it to my friends. And then that way they can follow along to the birds. They'll see the birds that I'm seeing. They'll see any photos that I upload. And they can see which hotspots I'm visiting. So it's a pretty cool way to track your friends as they're traveling too. Okay, one little comment too before we open it up for questions. One thing that surprised me when I was traveling a while back was that there are restrictions on binoculars in some countries. So particularly some of the countries in Africa and Asia and the Mideast area. So keep that in mind if you're traveling in those areas. You might just check online to make sure that binoculars are okay. If I am traveling in some of those areas, I've actually taken just like a cheap pair of binoculars that if they were taken, it would not crush me. Also, in even more countries, it can be illegal to take photos of police or government or military buildings. I was once questioned by security guards for looking through binoculars at birds near a building in Kenya. It wasn't even a special building of any sort, but it took me a while to convince them that my binoculars did not take photos. So just keep in mind that sometimes as birders, we do things that draw attention and people don't necessarily understand it. So just a couple things to keep in mind. All right, so does anyone have any questions for me?
I'm gonna let it so that you guys, do you want me to unmute everybody or do you want questions in the chat? What do you prefer?
They can unmute if they want to ask the question.
Okay, okay, you guys should have the ability to unmute yourselves now.
And if anybody prefers to type their question in chat, that's fine too.
Thanks, Michelle. I love all of the trip report stuff because it's super, super fun to do a trip report, but thanks for showing us how to do it.
Yes, and also as Tammy added too, you can add multiple owners to the trip report. So if I'm going on a trip with Liz, I can actually add her to the trip report and then she'll get an email and she just accepts it. And then now she's on the trip report where she can, any birds that she sees gets compiled into that too. So that's a fun way too. And then you can share all of your lists. So again, say Liz and I are on a trip together, and we're doing multiple lists. I don't have to share the list to her every single day. We can wait till the end, and then I can share all of the lists to her in like a button push through the trip report. So that makes it really convenient also.
I had a quick question. Is there any time when you ever had to do any of this stuff with a pencil and paper?
I don't think I have, because when I started, eBird already existed and I was taught to use eBird from day one. So I actually I'll say back in the day, because it was before Merlin. I would look up the birds because I was using a paper guide, and so the way I would do it is, if when we were headed to a new area, I would use eBird to look up the most recent birds that we're seeing, and so I would go back maybe a month worth of birds on the hotspot. I would see which birds we're seeing, and I would look up each bird, any birds that I was not familiar with. I would look them up in my guide, and then I would have a paper note and I would write the bird's name and then any features that would remind me of what this bird was. And so I would actually I didn't want to take my big guide because I had like the huge guide for the whole US. And so I would just take my little notes and my phone and go birding. And that's how I did it back then. But now we have Merlin, which is way easier. So even in the field, you can use Merlin Bird ID to take a photo of it, or to listen to the sounds and ID it by that. Or if you can't get sound or take a photo, you can do the Merlin Bird ID with just like what color was it, what size was it, what was it doing, and it's gonna kind of come back with photos to show you what you might have seen. So much easier now.
That's cool. Yeah, I still keep I think I still keep a physical life list just because I
Yeah.
like having the book around. It's kind of neat to see everything written down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I also like going back into my old guide and like writing the place where I found the bird in the first time. So like if it's a life bird, like writing the location and the date in my birding guide. I think that's fun.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I really like that talk. It gets you kind of excited for traveling because like you don't even need to go anywhere exotic really to see different birds. Like you could do this for just going anywhere, which is the exciting part.
Exactly. Yeah. Just leaving our town, driving, I don't know, not even maybe an hour away or something, can give you a whole different set of birds. So you can use the information here to prep for what you're going to see just an hour away that's different.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. It's like it is so true. Wherever you go, you can see what you might find, and then you can create a trip report. You can keep track of everything, and you can plan for your trip so you know where you might find those birds that you want to see.
Yep.
Thank you so much again. I'm gonna stop recording now.